That's how we all die.
In the last episode, we were able to tie Murdoch's mafia tactics directly to Johnny Depp's libel lawsuit in the UK. You see, the UK trial was held in the High Court, meaning there was no jury. It was up to a single judge to determine the truthfulness of Dan Wootton's article published in the Sun newspaper. Since defamation cases in the US are generally decided by a jury, it's less likely Murdoch's Mafia can intervene the way they did in the UK on behalf of Amber Heard. Of course, that does not exclude them from swaying public opinion with bad press about Johnny Depp while the US trial is being aired and deliberated. Thanks to some fancy OSINT work by Incredibly Average, we were able to see exactly how one of Amber Heard's primary witnesses was proven to be giving false testimony in what could only be described as an attempt to deceive that court. In fact, testimony provided in the UK trial also revealed that Miss Heard had previously deceived an Australian federal court as well with regard to smuggling pistol and boo into the country. Just as she claimed the two police officers who arrested her for domestic assault against her previous wife are homophobic liars, even though one of them is gay, and also claims the 4 police officers who attended her home while she was married to Depp are incompetent liars, she will most likely try to claim the Australian Federal Police are liars as well. Anywho, let's have a squiz at what other lies Incredibly Average has uncovered during the UK trial.
This video is focusing primarily on the events that allegedly took place on the night of May 21st, 2016, and breaking down where things don't quite make sense. I'll be primarily focusing on specific statements made within each individual declaration. My goal is to ask questions where things don't add up or align, questions you may have already asked yourself. Some of these questions I was able to dig deep enough and answer myself for the most part, and others I may never get an answer to, but the fact that those questions remain keeps my interest. I'll try to tackle each question in sequential order of when each individual claims something did, or in some cases did not happen. However, because of an overbearing amount of conflicting details, there will undoubtedly be some jumping around, but I promise I'll try to make it as organic and easy to follow as possible. Some questions may seem inconsequential, but when all these inconsistencies began to pile up, it was what truly gained my full attention to the details therein. Most of these questions will boil down to who is telling the truth due to the oftentimes radically different telling of the events by each individual. So here we go. I feel before we get started with the questions, I should go ahead and show something I plan to reference multiple times throughout the video. With the addition of Johnny's declaration, we got confirmation of several things, most notably which condo each alleged incident and action took place. As some of you may already be aware, at the time Johnny owned 5 condos on the penthouse level of the Eastern Columbia building in Los Angeles, all of which he has sold since the divorce. If you watched my first video, you know I'm very much a visual thinker, so in order to better understand what each person was claiming happened and where, I had to do a lot, and I do mean a lot, of work. Starting with this. This is a floor plan of the penthouse level of the Eastern Columbia building. Let me quickly go over a few things. These will often be referred to as condos or condominiums, apartments, or more officially penthouses. These terms are all interchangeable, and unless quoting directly from given statements, I will mostly refer to them as condos. As you can see, each condo is officially numbered 1 through 5, so let's just focus in on those. These are not numbers I arbitrarily gave to them, but rather the actual numbers on the plaques outside of the entrance of each condo. This is important to note as they will be referenced throughout. Condo number 1 is what will often be referred to as Raquel's condo. This is where she and her then fiancé Josh Drew lived at the time, rent-free. Side note, their marriage only lasted a few months as they would split soon after she was seen with a stuntman while visiting Amber in Australia as the latter was filming Aquaman, but that's not what this video is about. Condo 2 will be the least talked about as it was presumed to be primarily a guest condo and is not the location of any of the alleged actions of this night. Condo 3 is arguably the most important, as it was the living quarters of Johnny and Amber and the location of each incident of alleged abuse cited in Amber's declaration. Condo 3, 4, and 5 were said to have somewhat secret doors that would attach the 3 previously separate condos, creating essentially one giant space for Amber and Johnny and his family. Condo 4 seemingly a gathering and entertainment space, and Condo 5 referenced by Amber and Johnny as her closet and art studio. From everything I've learned, I believe these connected entrances were on the second floor of each of the 3 condos, and these 3 condos were the only units said to be connected. It should be noted that each of these condos does have a second floor, only accessible from within each of the condos, meaning the only entry into each condo from the hallway is from this first penthouse floor you see here. And if I'm correct, which I'm fairly certain I am, the only way to access the secret doors between condos 3 through 5 would be to enter through the main floor hallway door, then to go upstairs. That will become a very important piece of information later on. I am very familiar with the layout of the second floors as well, but given that nearly all the key actions that allegedly took place happened on this floor of each condo, I didn't want to muddy the waters with too many visuals or floor plans, plus it too would have taken forever to recreate accurately. Okay. The first question comes fairly early in Amber's declaration. She claims that when Johnny arrived at their condo on the night of May 21st, her friends, Elizabeth Marks, Raquel Pennington, and Raquel's fiancé Josh Drew, were all present. This gives the assumption that they were there to see Johnny arrive. At least that's what I interpret as being present. However, according to Raquel's declaration, she never mentions witnessing Johnny's arrival or even being aware of it until later receiving a text from Amber which caused her to go over to Johnny and Amber's condo, but we'll get to that in a bit. According to Johnny's declaration, to the best of his knowledge, Amber was alone in their condo when he arrived. Raquel was not present at the time of his arrival, and he would only see and interact with Josh Drew and the woman he could only assume was Elizabeth Marks before leaving after the alleged incident had occurred, that interaction taking place in a completely different condo. I find it interesting that one of Amber's key witnesses' statements is more in line with what Johnny said than Amber. That being, Johnny nor Raquel say that Raquel was present when Johnny arrived to the couple's condo. Johnny can't account for her whereabouts at the time, and Raquel says she was in her neighboring condo with her fiancé up until the moment she received the text from Amber. So which is it? Were they present when Johnny arrived, or were they simply just in the building? Because if the latter is the case, I have a completely different idea of what the word present means. So that makes this currently still an unanswered question. The next sequence of events raises so many questions. This is mainly due to statements from Amber and her 2 key witnesses not adding up or matching up, or sometimes downright opposing what each other stated in their declarations, as Johnny has outright denied their claims. This is going to have a lot of moving parts and people and some conflicting information, so I'll do my best to use all the pictures I have and the floor plans to help everyone better understand all of it. If Amber's friends were present in the condo when Johnny arrived, even if nobody stated they would leave the condo, they did indeed apparently leave the couple alone shortly after, because Amber's declaration states that only she and Johnny were having a peaceful conversation on the couch in their living room as she tried to comfort him about the very recent death of his mother, when Johnny began to become increasingly enraged about something that Amber would only state as something that was untrue. It was then Amber claims to have called one of Johnny's trusted employees to help calm him down, but it did not work. I don't know whether this means that the call did not go through or the employees simply couldn't calm him, according to Amber. It is worth noting that she did not state the name of the employee she attempted to call, much like she didn't say what Johnny was so upset about, but more on that in a bit. Johnny denies the attempt to contact any employee. In fact, he claims to have had minimal interaction with Amber during his entire time there, stating he was only there to get some of his personal belongings and brought 2 members of his security detail to wait outside the condo door because he was afraid of what Amber might try to do while he was there. It was after this attempted phone call that Amber claims Johnny continued to become enraged and she feared for her safety. This prompted her to send a text to her friend Raquel asking her to come over. And this is where things already start to get a little interesting. That's because this is essentially where Raquel's declaration concerning that night begins. She claims she was in her condo with her fiancé Josh Drew. She makes no mention of Liz Martz at this time. Interestingly enough, Raquel never mentions Liz Martz throughout her entire declaration. Raquel claims to have received Amber's text at approximately 8:06 p.m. I'm assuming that's based on the timestamp on the text because otherwise that is a very specific time to approximate. Both Amber and Raquel claim the text was asking Raquel to come over. That instantly seemed odd to me. Amber fears for her safety from a man whom, according to her, has already devastatingly abused her a number of times and even caused her to fear for her life, and yet the text is not help, get help, call 911, or anything of that sort, but rather a simple, can you come over? I can also only assume that the text did not imply an emergency, as Raquel went down the hall to Johnny and Amber's condo alone. If you recall, Raquel claims she received the text while she was in her condo with Josh Drew. I genuinely hope this doesn't get taken as a knock on female empowerment, because that is not my intent. But if it was implied in the text that Amber was in danger, why did Josh not go with Raquel? Also, alternatively, if Amber feared for her safety, why was the text casually asking Raquel to come over instead of implying danger? Again, questions I can't answer yet. Next, we have the action of Raquel going to the condo. She says she immediately went over to Amber's place. This is another moment in the video where I'll be throwing a lot of information at you in a relatively short amount of time. Raquel claims that when she got to the door, she heard Johnny and Amber arguing inside. Please make an important mental note that even though Raquel's condo is extremely close to Johnny and Amber's, that she did not claim to have heard them arguing until she got to the door. Not from her condo, nor in the hallway, but only when she got to the door could she hear them inside. Also, from a time standpoint, this would be around the time, according to Amber, that Johnny would have been demanding she call her friend Io Tillett Wright to help deny the supposed untrue thing Johnny was so upset about, or perhaps even while Io was on speaker and Johnny was allegedly screaming at him over the phone as well. But again, note that Raquel claims she could hear both Johnny and Amber arguing, not just angry Johnny. Raquel states she knocked on the door but nobody answered. She makes no mention of the security guards, Jerry Judge and Sean Bett, who each, along with Johnny, claim they were both waiting just outside the door while Johnny was inside. Both security guards also make no mention of seeing Raquel while they waited outside the door. We can safely assume Raquel is claiming to have been alone while knocking on the door. And we know the security guards weren't already inside because it is one of the only things that everyone agrees to in their statements, that being the security guards entered the apartment after Raquel was already inside. But how did she get inside without security seeing her? There are multiple potential answers to this. According to her statement, once Raquel knocked and no one answered, she quickly ran back to her condo to get a key she had for the door. She claimed she was back at the door to unlock it in less than a minute, which is believable considering how close the two condos are to one another. So there's one potential answer as to how she got inside. Now then, why didn't security see her, even though they claim to be waiting outside the door? I can assume one could argue they might have been away from the door during the time Raquel was there and knocking, but to poke a hole in that theory, they would have had to have been a long distance away for them to have not heard any knocking and not have been there when Raquel returned to unlock the door. Also, according to everyone, they later entered very shortly after Raquel upon hearing Amber scream. Again, remember when Raquel said she heard Johnny and Amber arguing when she got to the door? This means they would have had to have been near the door to hear it and rush in as quickly as they did. To briefly sidestep, I feel I need to ask this question again. If, when Raquel initially went to the condo without a key in hand, Josh Drew did not go with her because maybe it didn't seem like an emergency, when she ran back to their place, rushing to get a key to unlock the door to help Amber, why did he not go with her then? After all, Raquel did officially state in her court-sworn declaration that Amber had confided in her many times over the past few years about Johnny's physical and emotional abuse. One would think she would want all the help she could get when going to potentially save her friend, right? Those questions really bother me. But to get back on track, I have another potential answer as to how and when Raquel entered the apartment. I might have to jump forward and back in the telling of this to make my point, so bear with me. According to Johnny's declaration, when he arrived at their condo that night, Amber was alone and upstairs. He claims he went upstairs to gather some things from their bedroom. Upon going upstairs, Amber went downstairs, neither of them interacting. While gathering his things, he could hear Amber downstairs talking very loudly, already on the phone with Io, in what he describes as mocking and goading terms. He says that when he came downstairs, Raquel was now in the condo, sitting on the couch next to Amber, who was still on the phone with Io. Johnny claims it's possible that Raquel entered through Penthouse 4, and here's why I think it's a strong possibility. I've already shown that in order to hear Amber screaming and enter the apartment so quickly, the security guards would have had to have been very near the hallway entry door to Condo 3. But if Raquel did enter Condo 3 through Condo 4, security would have still seen her going into Condo 4 on her way, right? Yes, unless she was already in Condo 4. My reasoning behind thinking this could truly be a possibility is based on the wordage used by Amber in her declaration and Johnny's version of the events of that night coupled with other various pieces of information. When first referencing who was present when Johnny arrived, Amber stated that Raquel and Josh lived in an adjacent apartment. Later in her declaration, Amber would claim Josh and Raquel took her into their condo for safety. So we have Amber establishing early on the proximity/location of Raquel and Josh's condo, and later referring to it simply as their condominium. So my question is, when Amber claims to have sent the text to Raquel asking her to come over, why did she say Raquel was in the condo next door? And how was she aware of Raquel's exact whereabouts? Again, she had already established how close Raquel's condo is, and this is one big technicality that could mean nothing, but Raquel's condo isn't exactly the condo next door. That distinction belongs to condo 2, and yes, condo 4. Is it possible Amber was referring to Raquel's condo with completely different wording at this and every other point in the declaration? Sure, absolutely. But given that the security guards made no statement of seeing Raquel in the hallway, nor does she claim to have seen them either, isn't it also a possibility that Amber knew Raquel was already in condo 4 at the time of Johnny's arrival? Not in the adjacent condo, not in her condo, but very specifically just the condo next door. It is at the very least a possibility which I feel should be considered. As to a possible answer to the second question about Amber being aware of Raquel's exact whereabouts, like knowing which condo she was in at the moment and the potential confirmation of that knowledge, one need not look much further than Johnny's telling of the events. I know I'm sidestepping quite a bit now, but it seems like a natural place to go over this. Trust me, it should all come full circle by the end. Since we've already established Johnny's version up to the point he comes downstairs, only now to find Raquel has joined Amber in the living room on the couch, let's just pick up from there. He claims Amber was still on the phone with I.O., and Johnny asked to speak to him. He claims he said something to the effect of, "You got what you want, you can have her." This could be referring to the rumor that, after living with the couple rent-free sometime in 2015, I.O. overstepped his boundaries and was unceremoniously kicked out. I can't elaborate any more than that. I can only add that this was even hinted at, albeit laughingly, in I.O.'s article he wrote on the refinery. It should be noted that while Amber claims Johnny ripped the phone from her hand and began to scream insults and profanities at I.O., Johnny denies this, and surprisingly enough, I.O. doesn't claim Johnny screamed insults or profanities at him either, only that he heard Johnny yelling at Amber. Again, as we continue, you'll notice some things her witnesses say fall more in line with what Johnny says happened on the other side of the phone call. After saying what he said to I.O., Johnny then claims he tossed the phone on the couch and crossed the room to the kitchen, away from Amber, never touching her in any way and without the phone hitting her anywhere, only landing on the couch. Did I.O. happen to hear anything? Well, as a matter of fact, in his own article he seems very careful to say he heard the phone drop and tweeted things like, "I heard her scream." Believe it or not, I actually think these statements could have some truth. If you want my opinion, I think, aside from some very important omissions, I.O. heard many of the perceived sounds and verbal exchanges he believes to be linked to audibly witnessing abuse as it happened. But as I continue, I hope to open your mind to the possibility that I.O. heard exactly what he needed, and I can't emphasize that word enough, needed, to hear to give a convincing argument in his declaration and article attached to it. Johnny claims that as he went into the kitchen area, Amber began to scream. I believe this is the screaming I.O. is referring to after he heard the phone drop. Upon hearing Amber screaming, the security guards, who again were waiting just outside the entry door, rushed inside, only to find Johnny standing in the kitchen, while Amber and Raquel were both in the living room area, nowhere near Johnny. Important to note, according to this information given by Johnny and the two members of his security, Raquel was in the condo with Amber while Amber was still presumably on the phone with I.O. This contradicts the statements made by Amber that the phone call was ended before Raquel and the security guard's entry. According to their declarations, upon their entry, Amber was screaming, "Stop hitting me, Johnny," into the phone. Now, is it a possibility this could be exactly what I.O. was saying he heard in his declaration? And just a weird and what may seem like an insincere question. Who, when allegedly is having their hair and face violently pulled and grabbed while being struck, is able to string together full, coherent sentences like, "Stop hitting me, Johnny, stop hitting me, Johnny," not only narrating what is happening, but also properly identifying who is doing it for someone else to hear over the phone. So, again, I ask, is it not a possibility that I.O. heard exactly what he needed to hear to not be lying about what he heard, but still convey what needed to be conveyed for the sake of convincing? Another fair question, I feel. According to Johnny and the security guards, once Amber realized they had entered and she was screaming for Johnny to stop hitting her into the phone while Johnny was not near her, she changed from present to past tense. It is then alleged that Amber and Raquel, both seeming surprised by the quick entry of the security guards, began to feign crying, with Amber proclaiming things like, "He hit me with a phone," and "That's the last time you hit me, Johnny." Again, detailing what allegedly happened and properly identifying Johnny to IO over the phone. She would allegedly follow up by saying if he hit her again, she would call the police. This is something confirmed by several parties on both sides. Johnny nor his security detail deny him becoming defensive and visibly upset at the screamed allegations. I would assume this is something along the lines of what Johnny feared she would do and the reason he claims to have brought his security along in the first place. Johnny would, I can safely assume with a very elevated tone, say things like, "What are you talking about? You're crazy. I didn't hit you." Johnny and his security guards claim Johnny never got close to Amber or Raquel the entire time they were in there and that he didn't break or smash anything. They also claim that they themselves didn't have any interactions with Amber or Raquel and they were only present for about 30 seconds before Amber screamed, "Call 911" into the phone, immediately followed by them saying, "Let's just get out of here, boss," and leaving with Johnny in tow. I feel I should add that these official statements given in their declarations match what they openly said shortly after the public allegations against Johnny back in 2016. According to them, Amber was the one who would fly into a fit of rage, screaming, throwing bottles, and charging him, stating they would have to physically pull her off of him. After leaving Condo 3, but before leaving the building, Johnny claimed to go with his security into Condo 5 to discover Josh Drew, a woman he now presumes to be Elizabeth Martz, and a dog. He told them to leave the condo, and they did. Thereafter, he and his security team would leave the building. He claims they seemed to be operating some sort of bead business from Condo 5, something I believe he would have otherwise been unaware of unless he actually saw it, having not been there in a month. So why do I find that important? Well, a couple of things. This is the condo Amber and Raquel claim Johnny went into after the alleged assault and continued to destroy Amber's personal belongings, which Johnny denies. Also, I want to point out that Johnny was very likely correct about them using it to operate a bead business. Raquel, to this day, still promotes her bead business, and look where she and Elizabeth Martz were set up the next morning. That's right, selling all sorts of beads, giving card readings with, oddly enough, good vibes. So this leads us full circle like I said it would, and offers key comparison points as we move forward with Amber and her witnesses' versions of the events. If this is what Raquel and company were clearly prepping for the following morning, it would make perfect sense that her and her fiancé Josh Drew weren't just chilling in their condo when Johnny got there, but were rather busy working to get things ready for the following morning, just as it was observed by Johnny. So is it not an even more likely possibility now that Josh Drew, Elizabeth Martz, and Raquel were all potentially in Condo 5, with Raquel moving into Condo 4 upon Johnny's arrival when he stationed his security team just outside the door to Condo 3? Keeping in mind that Condo 5 connects to Condo 4, which then connects to Condo 3. This would certainly allow Raquel to enter the condo unbeknownst to Johnny and his security team and help explain Amber's knowledge of her whereabouts. It is, at the very least, a possibility. Now let's briefly go back to Raquel claiming she used the key to unlock the door to Condo 3. She claims upon opening the door she saw Amber by the couch in the living room, covering her head with her arms and hands as Johnny was loudly screaming at her. I find it interesting that, according to Raquel, this was less than a minute after hearing both of them arguing through the door. Now we only have angry Johnny yelling while Amber is covered up for protection. To find out how we got to this point, we need to rewind just a bit and figure out what was alleged to have happened inside the condo leading up to Raquel's claimed entrance. So let's temporarily put a pin in this exact moment. According to Amber's declaration, after sending the text to Raquel, Johnny continued to rant in an aggressive manner. Then he demanded they call Amber's friend Io Tillett right. Apparently she claims it was Johnny's idea to call Io to prove the thing he believed someone did. Io does claim to have received a phone call that night concerning this thing he thought someone had done. So what was this thing they keep referring to but won't say even though they say it isn't true? Well, if you watched my first video you already know, but I'll give you the abbreviated version. A month earlier, on April 21st, 2016, Johnny was in a meeting and arrived 2 hours late for Amber's birthday party. It was on this night that Amber claims Johnny assaulted her, but more recent reports include Johnny's accusation. He alleges while he was reading in bed, an angry Amber punched him twice in the face before he grabbed her to stop her and pushed her onto the bed before leaving, telling her not to follow him. He then claims that sometime after he left, she, and potentially others, pooped in their bed. The next day, the maid would find the poop in the bed while Amber and friends were gone to Coachella. Amber does not deny the poop being there, but claims it was from her roughly 5-pound teacup Yorkie. There are photos we have not seen yet, thank God, but the poop was said to have been way too big to have come from such a small dog. After these allegations came out, I.O. did say that this was what the May 21st phone call was about. Now back to that night in May. Amber claims as the call went through on speakerphone, Johnny ripped the phone from her hands and began to scream profanities and insults at I.O. I.O. would yell for Amber to get out of the house. It was at this time that Amber claims Johnny grabbed the phone, wound up his arm like a baseball pitcher, and threw the phone at her face, striking her with great force. Does anyone else find it a little odd that she claims Johnny grabbed the phone twice? What I mean is, if when the call connected, Johnny ripped the phone from Amber's hands, why moments later would he have to grab the phone again? I presume at this point he's still holding it from the initial ripping from Amber's hands, right? Again, odd. All I'm saying. Want to know what else is odd, at least to me? I.O.'s version of the phone call. It doesn't match Amber's at nearly any turn. See, Amber claims that the moment the call went through on speaker, Johnny immediately ripped the phone away and began his tirade against I.O. However, according to I.O.'s declaration, not only did Johnny not immediately start hurling insults, but I.O. was able to speak to Amber long enough on the call to discover what the phone call was concerning, what Johnny was upset about, and what Amber was asking I.O. to do to try and help calm the situation. It was only after all this that I.O. claims Johnny flew into a rage, but aimed at Amber, not him. To their credit, there are a couple of things that match up about the phone call, or at least somewhat match up. After the phone allegedly hit Amber in the face, she says she covered her face because of the pain. She claims Johnny charged at her, demanding to see her face and grabbed her hair as she attempted to stand from the sofa. This hair-grabbing accusation is somewhat mirrored in I.O.'s declaration, albeit by supposedly hearing Johnny bizarrely verbalize his actions like some kind of an early 1960s Bond villain. The other thing that matches up is, at that moment, Amber claimed to have yelled, "Call 911" to I.O. I.O. also claims that after hearing Amber crying and begging Johnny to stop hitting her, to have heard her yell, "Call 911" before the call, depending on your perspective, abruptly or conveniently disconnected. After the disconnection, Amber claims Johnny continued to pull her hair, strike her, and violently grab her face. My question here is, how did the phone call disconnect or end right after Amber yelled "Call 911" when presumably no one had possession of the phone? And remember, I.O. didn't end the call either, but claims it disconnected the moment after he heard Amber yell "Call 911." I say nobody presumably had possession because this was after the phone was said to have hit Amber in the face and she claims she covered her head and face, meaning she didn't have the alertness, time, or free hands to pick the phone back up after it allegedly bounced off her face, landing who knows where. We can assume Johnny didn't end the phone call because he was, according to Amber, using one hand to pull her hair and the other to grab her face and strike her. So this same phone call that did not end when the phone allegedly struck Amber's face with great force after being thrown like a fastball just so happened to end immediately after Amber yelled "Call 911. That is, what's the word, convenient? This adds to the possibility that Johnny and his security could be telling the truth about Amber yelling it unwarrantedly into the phone. One could argue that this was the final desperate move and scare tactic before ending the call herself while Johnny was leaving the condo. Now that the I.O. phone call is over, we can get back to the point of convergence, the moment Raquel claimed to have entered the condo. According to Amber, this was after yelling "Call 911" and while Johnny was continuing to pull her hair and strike and grab her face. She claims that Johnny seemed momentarily distracted by Raquel, which allowed her to break free from his grasp and move to the other side of the room. Then she states Johnny charged at her, apparently having regained his focus, but Raquel was able to run between them to stop his charge. I hope you recall what Raquel claims to have seen upon opening the door to the condo, because this, again, is where Amber's claims don't match up with one of her witnesses. I will go ahead and tell you, though, when they do agree on any action or occurrence while they were both present in the room, they really do agree. I mean, like, all the way down to wordage, verbiage, heck, even punctuation and hyphenation. It really is impressive. So just a little forewarning about that trend when I start to go over it. Raquel claims that upon opening the door, she saw Amber covering her head with her arms and hands while Johnny screamed at her. She does not confirm what Amber claims was happening when Raquel entered. Again, Amber claims that Johnny had her by the hair and was striking her and grabbing her face, and before you say, well, maybe he let go before Raquel opened the door, remember, Amber says it was only upon Raquel entering that Johnny seemed distracted enough that she could break free from his grasp, meaning it was still happening for Raquel to have seen. So here we have Amber and her key witness claiming two different things happening as Raquel opened the door and entered the condo. And it doesn't stop there. According to Raquel, not only does she not mention Johnny having a grip on Amber's hair and or face, but rather that Amber was covering her head while Johnny was only yelling. But she also claims to have ran right over to get between them. No mention of Amber fleeing to the other side of the room as Amber stated, and Johnny charging, just that Amber was covering her head, Johnny was yelling, and she ran over and stood between them. So that doesn't really match up. And you want to know why, at least in my opinion, why I believe it doesn't? I'm about to tell you one of the biggest lies Raquel told through her entire declaration. That's because upon opening the door to the condo, like she claims, she actually saw nothing. To be clear, she saw something, maybe some coats or hats hanging up, but she absolutely did not see Amber or Johnny in the living room when she opened the door she claims to have entered through. Remember, this is the door she says she opened. It is the only entrance to the condo from the hallway and also easily the shortest distance from Raquel's condo. Raquel says she saw Johnny and Amber in the living room when she opened the door. But this is what you actually see when you open the door. If you notice on the floor plan, the living room is way over here and around the corner. Raquel not only wouldn't be able to see it the moment she opened the door, but would have to take several steps inside and turn the corner before even having it in her sight. Upon opening the door, she maybe saw a table, lamps, some pictures, a rug, and at best a portion of the kitchen, but she did not see the living room or anyone in it. And make no mistake, she does not mince words when she said she saw them in the living room when she opened the door. But something tells me she wasn't banking on someone finding out that this is a visual, physical impossibility. In my opinion, this adds to the possibility that this was not how or when Raquel entered the condo and adds more credibility to the idea that she was already in there, and why Amber and Raquel's telling of what was happening as she entered/opened the door are different. But don't worry. Now that they've both established Raquel as being in the condo and between Amber and Johnny, they get their stories back on track. Like, eerily back on track. Nearly word for word back on track. You see, now that Raquel is between the couple, both Amber and Raquel claim that Johnny slapped away Raquel's arms/hands after she had extended them in a defensive manner, while begging Johnny to stop as he yelled/screamed obscenities at her. Raquel would then cover Amber to protect her. It was after this that Johnny picked up not just a bottle of wine, but a magnum-sized bottle of wine. Oh, did I forget to mention that the whole time leading up to this, while Amber and Johnny were having a peaceful conversation on the couch, that Johnny was apparently drinking from this very bottle? Oh, that's right. That's probably because Amber's just now plugging it into her declaration as well. But I digress. Anyway, according to both women, Johnny began to swing this magnum-sized wine bottle to smash everything he could. He would then charge/storm at Amber, demanding she stand up. He did this, about 10 times, getting closer, louder, and more threatening each time. Immediately thereafter, they claimed Johnny's security team entered, which included Jerry Judge, but they stood back and did not say or do anything. Amber would yell for Jerry to help, and that if Johnny hit her one more time, she was going to call the police. They claimed Jerry said, "Boss, please," and apparently nothing else, as Johnny continued screaming and breaking things, before finally leaving the condo, going into the hallway, where he would allegedly continue to scream and break things and smash another bottle of wine, even though it was never said he smashed the first bottle, only using it to smash other things. Whew. Okay. From here, they would both claim to hear Johnny go into Condo 5, which they describe as Amber's office, art studio, and closet for personal belongings. They state that they can hear Johnny inside the condo breaking Amber's things and screaming. It was only during this time that Josh Drew finally makes an appearance, apparently emerging from his and Raquel's condo to go and get Amber along with Raquel, with the couple taking Amber back to their condo for safety while Johnny was still in Condo 5, smashing things. I can only assume Elizabeth Martz was also in Raquel's condo because nobody mentions her location. Again, Raquel never mentions her at all, but she was on Amber's witness list to testify to what she observed that night relating to the domestic violence incident, so there's that. Also, I feel I must say neither Josh Drew or Elizabeth Martz submitted a declaration. And with such eerily similar wording from these two separate declarations from Amber and Raquel, it is very much worth noting Amber wrote her declaration on May 26th, while Raquel would write hers on May 27th, the day Amber submitted the application for the domestic violence restraining order. I just find it worth mentioning they were written a day apart and have such word-for-word descriptions the same. But back to it. It was during this time, while Johnny was still allegedly breaking Amber's personal belongings and Amber had been taken to Raquel and Josh's condo, that Raquel claims to have noticed Amber's alleged eye injury, citing both redness and swelling. Sometime after, not sure how long, they claim Johnny left the premises while they were still in Raquel's condo for safety. Amber simply says she did not hear him anymore, but Raquel says she actually heard him leave. It was after this that Raquel says she took pictures of Amber's injured face. These, along with pictures taken of the property damage, were submitted to court along with Amber's request for the DVRO on May 27, 2016. So let's rewind because I have questions, not enough answers, and things are really not adding up, primarily when important things like time and space or distance are involved. I want to start from the point Raquel claims to have received the message Amber sent asking her to come over. According to Raquel, upon receiving the text, she went immediately over, knocked, ran back to her condo to get a key, and was back to unlock the door in less than a minute from when she had left after having knocked. This tells me that if a trip from Condo 3's door to Raquel's condo to find and retrieve a key and back to Condo 3's door takes less than a minute, then we can assume the initial one-way trip of going immediately from her condo to the door of Condo 3 easily took less than a minute as well. To be able to approximate a length of time as being less than a minute, I would imagine it would have to be noticeably less than a minute, meaning you wouldn't likely say it was less than a minute if it were, say, around 55 seconds. Most people would just say about a minute, but Raquel made sure to specify it was indeed less than. So let's say on the high end, the trips each, on average, took 45 seconds. That's 1 minute and 30 seconds total, again, on the high end. Now we have to account for the time she took the door before retrieving the key. Let's say it was a long 30 seconds of listening to them yell through the door and knocking before feeling it was urgent enough to run back for a key. Now we have, at most, a total of 2 minutes. You might be asking, why does this matter and where the heck are you going with this? And that's because, according to Amber and IO, a lot of stuff happened in this brief potential 2-minute window. After the text was allegedly sent and received, Amber claims Johnny continued to rant in an aggressive and incoherent manner. It does not say for how long he would do this, but then he would go on to demand Amber call IO, even telling Amber his reasoning for his demand. Amber would call IO on speakerphone, and the call presumably went through. IO would go on to explain how Amber was calling him because Johnny was upset about something he thought someone had done to him. After explaining the situation, Amber asked if IO would talk to Johnny and try to calm him down concerning this thing that they said was untrue. You know, the poop in the bed thing. After this, IO claims Johnny flew into a rage. Amber claims Johnny ripped the phone from her hand and began to scream profanities and insults at IO over the speaker. Again, I'm not sure how long this went on for, but until IO was able to yell for Amber to get out of the house. Then Johnny winds up his arm like a baseball pitcher and throws the phone, hitting Amber in the face. Amber covered her face. Johnny charged at her, taunting her, challenging whether the phone hit her, all while IO was still on speaker. IO could hear Johnny screaming, "What if I pulled your hair back?" Amber claims he did pull her hair as she tried to stand from the sofa. Amber begged Johnny to stop hitting her before finally yelling, "Call 911," and the call would then disconnect, but Johnny would allegedly continue to pull Amber's hair, grab her face, and strike her. All of these alleged actions somehow supposedly took place in what was most likely less than 2 minutes. And that's not going into detail how long he spent cussing and hurling insults before even demanding the phone call to IO, how long it took Amber to call IO, how long Amber spoke to IO before Johnny's fit of rage, or how long he spent slinging insults at IO. Add all of that to the alleged physical and verbal actions while the call was connected, then the alleged physical actions that took place after the call disconnected, but before Raquel entered, and it seems like a real stretch to imagine all of that happening in less than 2 minutes. Not saying it's impossible, but man, that's a lot of stuff that would have to happen at lightning speed in order to be true. Next question. How in the heck could Amber and Raquel very specifically hear Johnny enter Condo 5 and yell and break things? Fun side note, these doors are self-closing doors. That's what this mechanism does. This so happens to be a picture of the inside of Condo 3, which has such a mechanism. We know that they each claim to have still been in Condo 3 while hearing him go into Condo 5 to break things before Josh Drew came to get them. But remember when I said make an important mental note about what Raquel heard and when she heard it? Remember when she stated she heard Johnny and Amber arguing inside? It wasn't until she got to the closed door that she heard them. And if our math is correct, this would have been when Johnny was allegedly screaming over the phone at I.O. or at Amber while they were also yelling from the speakerphone and in the condo. That's 3 people yelling in the condo, and she couldn't hear them from her condo or in the hallway, but only when she got to the locked door. So again, how were they still tucked well inside condo number 3 on the opposite far end of the hallway with yet another condo between them and condo 5 and a closed door? How in the world could they hear Johnny, one person, not 3 people, all the way in condo 5 and hear him breaking things and yelling? Also, quick question, what exactly did Johnny break in the hallway? Amber claims he smashed a second bottle of wine in the hall, and Raquel claims he was breaking things in the hallway, but here's a picture of the hallway while standing in the doorway of condo 3. You see what I see? That's right, nothing. These hallways are empty, devoid of anything to break. Sure, Amber says he went in the hall apparently with a wine bottle in hand and smashed it before going into condo 5. Then why is this the only hallway picture among the court-submitted pictures? No broken glass, nothing but spilled wine. Speaking of property damage photos, why are these the photos that were submitted with Amber's attempt to get the DVRO? According to Amber and Raquel, Johnny used a magnum-sized bottle to smash everything he could. Raquel would even add that wine was going all over the walls, floors, and furniture, yet the only pictures we have are a wine spill in the hall and on a hardwood floor with an overturned unbroken bottle, a broken picture frame that they apparently took the time to hang back up at a perfect 90-degree angle before taking a picture of it, and finally a rug that looks to have been flipped upside down to show the stain on the bottom with what looks to be glass sprinkled on it. I would have thought there would have been a lot more debris given their description of destruction. These are a far cry from the damage they claim to have taken pictures of before the police arrived. Oh, what? I didn't mention the police came after Johnny left? Well, that's weird I wouldn't mention that. Know what else is weird? That Amber and Raquel didn't mention it in their own court-sworn declarations. Now, why would they omit that? That's right. The LAPD sent officers to the condo in response to I.O.'s supposed 911 call. So what did the officers see? Well, according to their own separate depositions, they each saw essentially nothing. They claimed that Amber looked like she'd been crying, but saw absolutely no injuries on her face. No redness, no swelling, nothing. And remember, this was after Raquel claimed she had already taken pictures of Amber's injuries. So if this was Amber immediately following the alleged assault, and this was Amber several days later, she would have had injuries visible when the police showed up. But neither of the LAPD officers claimed to have seen injuries upon clearly observing her face. Even when asked what happened and if she needed medical attention, Amber's responses were nothing and no. The officers also claimed to have seen no property damage, no broken glass, shattered wine bottles, spilled wine, or other damage of any kind. After examining Amber and the condo, the officers left their card should Amber decide to call with any further details. So why did Amber and Raquel not mention the police coming in their own declarations? I would think that would have been an important piece of information. Well, once word got out the police did show up, Amber's response changed throughout the summer of 2016. Initially, after omitting it completely, she claimed this.
They were in an adjoining apartment when the cops arrived to talk with her.
Now, it would make sense to say this because the last they mentioned in their declarations, Amber was in Raquel and Josh's condo for safety. However, once the police stuck to their story of having observed the proper condo in question, Amber's story changed again, this time as part of an official statement from her lawyer, claiming the officers not only saw the damage to the condo, but also the injuries to Amber. So first was they didn't even go into the condo. Then when that didn't hold up, it became, well, they saw it, but they must be lying for some reason. So why did these stories change so drastically, and what were they doing back in Amber and Johnny's condo so shortly after Johnny leaving with the presumed risk of returning, but before the police arrived? I have my theories. Speaking of stories changing, this isn't the only attempt at this tactic. When questioned why Amber didn't tell the police something had happened, she said it was to protect Johnny, but more recently, with Johnny's allegations against Amber as part of his lawsuit against the Sun magazine, and even more recently, his $50 million defamation suit against Amber, she claims she never filed a police report at the advisement of her lawyer, even though her lawyers threatened it on her behalf constantly. I suppose one could argue the initial interaction with the police was to protect Johnny, and in the following months before dropping everything, her lawyer was saying this to the media while advising her not to press charges or file a police report. Now, what kind of a lawyer would give that kind of advice if they believe their client is telling the truth? I should also note that recently, with newly released documents from Johnny's lawsuits, these ever-changing stories were something Amber allegedly tried to get others to take part in. Trinity Esparza, the head of desk staffing and security at the Eastern Columbia building, was questioned shortly after the alleged incident. She claims to have seen no marks on Amber's face leading up to the day she filed for the DVRO. In a deposition given to the courts, Miss Esparza tells how Amber tried to get her and her staff to change their story and that she could use her friend at People magazine. Yes, that People magazine. The same People magazine that was forced to retract a past story claiming Johnny was going to rehab, which was not true. Ironically enough, the same magazine that got the immediate exclusive interviews and photos from Amber about another alleged incident occurring in December of 2015. An incident in which my first video covers in detail if you want to know more about it and I haven't bored you to death already. Esparza and her staff stayed with their initial comments and even discussed not seeing her with markings on her face the days leading up to this picture. Since we are on the topic of what people saw and whether it matched up with what the submitted photos showed, let's talk about these pictures. I have a few questions. 1, I'm questioning when exactly some of these could have been taken, and 2, where. As to the first question, it's really hard to say. They claim these photos were taken sometime between the point in which Johnny left and the point the police showed up. I can't debunk the when of these photos, as according to new court documents confirming the hard copy photos given to the courts were not given in tandem with the original digital copies nor the original metadata, which would confirm the exact dates and times of the photos. By the way, why not submit the originals? Why submit copies, some of which look to have been altered with a stock filter from a phone app? So the when must remain up in the air for now, but the where? That's where things get interesting. I've already noted how odd it is that among all the descriptions of damage Johnny allegedly caused, these are all we have. He apparently smashed at minimum 2 bottles of wine, but the only bottle we see is a bottle turned over on the floor, not broken with a spill. And before anyone says maybe they cleaned up a little before they took the pictures, you must recall they claim to have taken the pictures before the police arrived, and they also claim the police observed the damage, meaning these pictures had the potential to show much more damage in the condos and the hallway. That's if these damaged photos were even taken on this night or in the condos in question. Now, onto the submitted injury photos. I would say it's a safe bet to assume these photos were taken on different days, given the difference in hairstyle and volume, the different shirts, and the jewelry that is slightly different around the neck. I know they look the same at a glance, but they are indeed different necklaces. Also, the markings in these filtered photos are much more in line with Amber's appearance on May 27th after filing the request for the DVRO, but oddly enough, drastically different than the very next day, May 28th, after visiting her lawyer. So let's move back to this photo. This is the sole photo we saw submitted that presumably was taken moments after Johnny left while Amber was being kept in Raquel's condo for safety. You can clearly see the red markings Raquel describes in her declaration. However, I personally don't see any swelling. The eyes and surrounding areas on both sides of the face seem to be the same in terms of lack of puffiness or swelling. Interesting given that the phone allegedly struck Amber on this side of her face. Also worth mentioning is the angle of the line. The line marking what we can presume is supposed to be the outer edge of the phone is what looks to be at a near perfect 90-degree angle and flush against her face. Not saying that the phone could not have struck her this way, but when thrown as violently wild from the hands of an allegedly very drunken man, this is an incredible coincidence to strike flat against the face and at a perfect upright angle. Observation of her alleged facial injury aside, let me get to the main reason I'm showing this picture. According to Raquel's declaration, we were led to believe she observed the alleged injury on Amber's face while they had Amber in their condo for safety, taking pictures of said injury after Johnny had left. This has us assume the pictures of Amber's face, more specifically this picture, was taken in Raquel's condo. But where was this photo actually taken? Well, that's a question I can answer, and I can go ahead and tell you it wasn't in Raquel's condo as she would have you believe, and here's how I figured it out. I find it best to start by eliminating the condos that were obvious non-factors this night because, well, why would they go into a condo in which nothing took place just to take the injury photo? So that gets rid of condo 2 and 4. That leaves 3 potential possibilities. To figure out which one, it took a lot of digging and may take some long-winded explaining, but it will be worth it. As I previously mentioned, Johnny would eventually sell all 5 condos after the divorce. The collective units would actually go on the market in September of 2016, the month after Amber, having never pressed charges or filed a police report, dropped her entire allegations with prejudice, which basically means she can never accuse Johnny of it again and never seek legal action. Let that soak in for just a second. Anyway, the realty group listing the condos had taken several pictures and even video prior to posting the properties on the market. It is worth noting that by all accounts, this is very much the layout of the condos as they were while Johnny and Amber lived in them, and also the night of the alleged phone throwing. I say this confidently because it was so shortly after the allegations being dropped, and Amber, despite claiming to be homeless, was still seen residing in Condo 3 a few months later, as late as December 2016, just 1 month prior to the divorce being finalized. So let's observe what else we can see in this photo and try and help narrow things down. The colors are somewhat muted, so let's saturate them. This way it gives us a better indication of the colors in the surrounding areas. Basically, this makes the color stand out more, becoming more prominent. We can now see that the ceiling above Amber's head is a nice shade of blue with an inconsistently textured paint pattern. This is a big observation considering each condo has a unique color palette and aesthetic. Of the 5 condos, there are some that have blue, albeit on the walls and not the ceiling. And then those that aren't really blue, but they do have that inconsistent textured look, meaning not a straight flat color. You might be thinking, well, that gets us nowhere. I thought that too, but then I noticed that all of these condos have high ceilings. Well, at least on the first floor. The second floor of each condo has a much more standard height of ceiling, and if you notice, the ceiling above Amber's head is low enough to be visible in this up-close shot and also low enough to reflect the light from the lamp behind her. Something that's not possible with the high ceilings of the first level of the condos, and none of the first levels have this blue textured paint style on the ceiling. Of all the pictures I was able to gather of the second floor of the condos, only one matched the ceiling in color and pattern. This one. This, believe it or not, is Johnny and Amber's bedroom. It is upstairs in condo number 3. Note that not only does this color and pattern match the one from the entry photo, but also the ceiling is low enough to reflect the lamplight even in a daytime photo. Something else I'm sure others have noticed is the lamp. Notice this pull here, hanging down from the shade. Look familiar? I'm sure some would argue that many lamps have things like this on them, but these look identical. We also have purple in the background, matching quite a few things thematically in the room like pillows and paintings. And then there's something else in the background. It was really hard to make out until I was able to get a picture with a view from the opposite side of the room. Notice what is along the wall in the far corner. A shelf with various items on it. But what stands out the most is this. On the top shelf, it seems to be a basket of some sort, weaved with an alternating dark and light color and checkered pattern. So, if you would indulge me, I want to try something. Would you look at that? What looks to be the same basket on the top shelf of the same shelf at the end of a low ceiling with blue textured paint patterns. So it would seem Amber is standing about right here, just outside her bathroom, facing this direction while the picture was being taken. So why would Raquel try to have us believe that this picture was taken in her and Josh's condo? Not only was this not taken in Raquel's, but in Johnny and Amber's condo, but also upstairs in their bedroom. So why, so soon after being allegedly assaulted and so soon after Johnny had left, but in the brief window before the police arrived, if it was indeed before they got there, why would you go back into the condo and go all the way upstairs into the master bedroom to take this photo? And why lie about where it was taken? Why lie about this and so many other things? If what is claimed to have happened is the only undeniable truth, why are there lies and contradictions all throughout?